Hello, everyone, and welcome to my channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before we begin, please hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Hope Logan was walking slowly with her arms folded across her chest, her mind tangled in knots of doubt, longing, and fear as the afternoon sunlight poured through the windows of the executive office of Forrester Creations. She had been avoiding this moment for days, maybe weeks, but the time for indecision had passed. And now she had sent messages to both Liam Spencer and Carter Walton, asking them to meet privately because she couldn't choose lightly for the next chapter of her life, not with her heart split in two, not with every memory of their love, every whispered promise, and every tearful argument reverberating in her head like an uncontrollable song. She was startled out of her reverie by the gentle click of the door opening, and there was Liam still sporting that recognizable Spencer self-assurance, mixed with uneasiness, his hands in his jacket pockets as though he was preparing for a conversation he didn't want to have but couldn't avoid. He gave her a half smile that didn't quite reach his eyes, as though he was trying things out before entering fully. He said, "You said it was important," shutting the door behind him and stepping forward gingerly while his blue eyes searched her face for answers she wasn't yet prepared to provide. Carter entered the room before she could reply. He was composed but alert, his tall frame bearing the quiet authority of a man who had experienced his fair share of heartache, his eyes warm but inquisitive and his posture cautious, almost guarded, as he too sensed that this was not just another business meeting but something much more permanent and personal. Hope let out her breath slowly, feeling their expectant stares press against her chest. She pointed to the dining room where a sleek glass coffee table was positioned between two leather chairs and a couch, and she waited for them to settle in before settling into her own chair and putting her hands together in her lap, like a child about to reveal a secret. She said softly, "I didn't call you here to talk about work," with the brittleness of glass and the quiet steel of someone who had already decided that she couldn't continue to live in this state of uncertainty, caught between what she believed she wanted and what she might actually need. She first glanced at Liam, the man who had been her pillar of support, her co-parent, her first true love, the man who had let her down and saved her in equal measure. And then she turned her attention to Carter, the man who had entered her life out of the blue and offered her stability without expectations, love without condemnation, and a future that didn't feel like a rehashing of past hurts. She continued, swallowing hard, as Liam's brows wrinkled slightly and Carter's eyes became more focused. "I've been thinking a lot about my future," she said, "about the type of life I want to lead, the example I want to set for the children, the love I'm prepared to fight for, and the things I'm prepared to let go of." A familiar stiffness tightened Liam's jaw as he leaned forward, elbows resting on his knees. He began, "Hope, if this is about us," but she stopped him with a gentle hand lift. "It's about all of us," she clarified, glancing momentarily at Carter, who said nothing, but whose eyes showed a glimmer of fear. She had mentally practiced this moment innumerable times, imagining their responses, their objections, and the potential harm she could inflict. But it was far harder to stand, or rather sit in this reality. "I have been making decisions for a long time based on avoiding pain and not wanting to hurt anyone. But in the process, I have been hurting myself, and I believe I have been hurting both of you, whether I meant to or not," she stated. Liam's voice was Low but sharp, and he shook his head.
Slightly.
Hopefully we've experienced enough. I'm available if you want to work on us. Simply tell me the truth if you don't. At last, Carter's voice was warm and measured. And if this is about us, then it's about me. I must also know I don't want to be involved in anything that makes you feel separated. Knowing that there would only be one option she could live with, she closed her eyes for a time to listen to what they had to say and feel the tug in opposing directions.
She said,
It's not just about romance. It has to do with trust, stability, the kind of collaboration that gives me a sense of security and visibility.
I
Can't keep up with both of you even, though I love you both in different ways. Liam's face stiffened a little, not out of rage, but rather as someone prepares for a potentially devastating response. His voice was hardly audible, above a whisper as he questioned, So, what are you saying? Hope's fingers twisted in her lap as she inhaled again. I am stating that I must make a decision. Whatever happens next, I want it to be discussed in person so there are no misconceptions or rumors, which is why I ask you both here. Although I can't guarantee that nobody will be harmed, I can guarantee that it will be done with the best interests of Beth, Douglas, myself, and everyone else in my life and mind in mind. Carter's hands on his knees tightened a little, but his eyes softened. Then he encouraged, Say it, Hope.
Speak what needs to be said.
With her heart racing, she glanced between them once again and came to the realization that, in a sense, this was the first time she had really taken charge of her own tale rather than allowing guilt, family, or history
Dictate it.
I need a partner who won't make me doubt my value. When things go tough, they don't back down. Someone who loves me every day, not just when it's convenient. Liam appeared to feel the weight of her gaze, which remained on him for a beat longer than it did on
Carter.
Because of our daughter, Liam, you have played a significant role in my life and always will. But I can't keep returning to a relationship that seems to be in constant rivalry with another person. And Carter, she turned to him, her voice a little shaky. You've been faithful and nice to me, and you've never treated me like a mere option.
I
care more about that than I thought. There was a terrible silence that lasted until she heard her own heartbeat roaring in her ears. Liam slowly leaned back, his facial muscles twitching as though he were suppressing a dozen different arguments, charges, and entreaties, but at last he simply nodded, his voice harsh. I suppose I must respect your decision if that's yours. Does not imply that it is painless. Carter, who was still processing, nodded slightly as well, but he looked into her eyes to make sure she wasn't acting irritably for the moment. Simply, I'm here, Hope, he stated. I'm here if you want me. Tears burned in her eyes, but she suppressed them because she had to remain strong and feel as though everything is against her. Perhaps she is prepared for something stable. Liam let out a bitter, humorless laugh. You mean you? Carter refrained from biting. I'm referring to stability. She stated that's what she
wants.
Whether it's me or not.
There.
Footsteps reverberated off the pavement as the elevator doors opened and they entered the parking garage. With his keys in hand, Liam stopped by his car. He murmured softly, I hope you can give it to her for her sake. But there was an implicit caution in his eyes because she won't be the only one disappointed if you don't. Carter acknowledged the significance and weight of those comments with a single nod before making his way to his own vehicle. Steffi Forrester was just returning from picking up Kelly at the Cliff House across town, which had a view of the Pacific when her phone buzzed with a message from Liam. It was brief, I must speak.
This.
Evening she recognized that tone and it was enough to make her chest
Constrict.
Hope had experienced
Something.
She was aware that Liam had never quite moved on from his ex-wife. Even though she didn't exactly relish on Hope's heartbreaks, she made an effort to avoid making snap judgments and instead concentrated on getting Kelly
Comfortable with some cartoons and a
snack. But when the sun started to set and the ocean started to light pink and gold, Liam arrived at her door looking exhausted, his hair a touch disheveled, and his face displaying that mixture of sadness and rage that she all too well recalled from their own breakups.
She
Moved to make room for him.
What
Happened? She inquired in a weary tone. Instead of sitting, he simply stood in the center of her living room and wiped his face. Carter was her choice.
Steffi
Blinked, torn between astonishment and the slightest glimmer of joy as the words came out, rough and nearly spit
out.
She crossed her arms and covered it effectively. So, is it official now? Liam gave a sour laugh. Indeed. Official. She made her decision there, sitting us both down as if we were at a boardroom meeting. Steffi's head cocked. It must have been awkward. Liam gave her a glance. Uncomfortable? Try making fun. If she let out a sigh as her pragmatic side and protective side clashed. Perhaps it's for the best, Liam. Perhaps. She needs someone who can. If she feels like she's been second in your heart, he abruptly interrupted her.
I didn't ask
You to support her. Steffi raised her
palms.
I'm not. I'm merely stating that. Perhaps this is your opportunity to discover your true desires without always switching between two ladies.
He
Didn't argue, but his eyes clouded a little. Silently, almost to himself, he whispered, I know what I want.
She
Simply doesn't desire me. At Brooks' house, on the other hand, the response was explosive. Earlier in the day, Hope had informed her mother of her plans, but Brooke had thought that her daughter would not follow through. Not in that manner, not with Liam present.
Brooks
Voice rose in shock when Hope called, later to clarify that she had selected
Carter.
You broke up with Liam in favor of Carter. Hope Carter.
Despite
Anticipating just this type of backlash, Hope maintained a composed tone. I won't break up with Liam for Carter.
Mom.
We're not working together. Therefore, I'm breaking up with Liam. It so happens that Carter is. Is it available? Easy to
Use.
Brooke cut in, her voice piercing. Are you even aware of what you're discarding? Your daughter's father is Liam. Hope interrupted, her voice suddenly steely. He's someone who's been in love with Steffi for half our marriage. Unprepared for such bluntness, Brooke froze. Mom, I will not continue doing this. Even if it doesn't make sense to you, I'm going with peace. Brooke's eyes flashed and her lips formed a narrow line. When I believed I knew better than everyone else, you sound exactly like me. And you know how those stories end. Hope, however, refused to give up. Perhaps I do. However, I have
To compose the story this time. When
Rich returned home later that night, Brooke was pacing the living room, obviously in the middle of a storm.
he
Loosened his tie and asked, What's wrong now? Brooke spun around him. Your beloved Carter just entered my daughter's life in a manner that I disapprove of. Rich scowled. What are you discussing? I hope you picked him over Liam, she stated bluntly. Righted eyebrows
raised.
Wait, what is she? Brooke raised
Her hands in the air.
It seems that she determined that Carter was a better choice and that Liam wasn't sufficient. This is going to blow up in her face. I'm telling you, Ridge. Ridge's face was more ambivalent. He respected Carter, but also recognized Brooke's protectiveness. Look, Carter is a decent
guy.
if she is content with him, Brooke argued. She's not thinking straight. Ridge rubbed the back of his neck and
Moaned.
or perhaps she's finally starting to think independently. In any case, we have no control over it. Brooke muttered to herself as she turned
Away.
Perhaps not. However, I can monitor it. By nightfall in Los Angeles, with the city lights glistening like strewn about gems, Liam found himself by himself in his apartment, gazing at a framed picture of himself, Hope and Beth from the previous
Christmas season.
3 words, take care. Liam buzzed on his phone from an unknown number. It was from Carter. He
Knew.
didn't respond. Rather, he put the phone down, reclined on the couch, and allowed the day's burden to settle.
In.
For the first time in years, there was no strategy to fix things or battle to win her back. Only the void where hope once existed.
A distinct.
Kind of current was developing beneath the surface of Forrester Creations. A customary bustle the following morning, which included the sharp click of high heels on marble, the shuffle of fabric rolls, and the hum of sewing machines in the design room, knowing that word of her choice wouldn't remain secret for long. Hope had already arrived early to complete some sketches and had discreetly avoided spending too much time in the hallways. It was already beginning to circulate in whispers by mid-morning, with a dozen distinct versions of the story circulating. Hope chose Carter over Liam, but Brooke wasn't whispering. Her determined stride caused the interns to scatter out of her way as she strode down the main office corridor. Less than 12 hours had passed since she made the decision to address Carter directly with her concerns.
She
Discovered him in the executive room, going over contracts, appearing to be the calmo until she snapped the door shut behind her. With a tone that made it impossible to refuse, she declared, "We need to talk."
Carter gently raised
his head, alert but composed. "Brooke, good morning." "Don't say good morning to
me," she retorted.
"You understand why I'm here?" Carter folded his hands in front of him and put down his pen.
If
Hope is involved, obviously it has to do with Hope, Brooke interrupted, raising her voice like it was a job interview. "You sat there yesterday and allowed her to break off her relationship with her child's father, Liam,
and you simply
agreed to it." Carter's voice was still level, but it now had a faint edge.
I
"Didn't make her pick me," Brooke
she
decided for herself. Brooke's gaze flickered. "She is susceptible.
She's been through a lot, and you were there
For her when she needed someone